Hey, this is Matthew with another World Terraria. You asked for it, so here it is, the 10-gallon drip wall tank update and lessons learned. In this video, I'm going to show you some updates on the 10-gallon drip wall tank, talk about some challenges and issues I've had with it, talk about lessons learned from the project, talk about what I wish I'd done different, and share any other thoughts and tips that come to mind. Let's go ahead and get started. It's been really fun to watch the tank grow in, and a few interesting things have happened. 1. Over time, the dripping pattern, location, and rate of the water has shifted. It's been changing based on the plant growth, which affects the pathway that the water takes down the tank. 2. I purposely added a few new moss and liverwort species to see how they would grow in the tank and if I liked the way they looked, but a few other species have actually shown up on their own. 1 or 2 of them snuck in as tiny pieces that were within the riccia that I bought and that I spread all over the walls, and over time they've grown out and they're now a significant portion of what's covering the wall. But also some mosses and liverworts have popped up from the mopani wood and from the bucephalandra clumps that I planted. 3. Surprisingly, I'm getting ferns popping up. There appear to be at least 2 species. I'm not sure where the spore came from, but I'm guessing it might have been from the mopani wood or from the bucephalandra clumps. I'm excited to see how the ferns look as they grow, because currently they're too young to identify, and I have no idea what the mature foliage is going to look like. Next, I'm going to get into the challenges and lessons learned, but first I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel for more awesome videos about terrariums and plants. And if you're already subscribed, I want to thank you for your support. I made this terrarium for a friend, and it was initially intended to be done on a low budget. However, we had to raise the budget a few times due to feature creep, unforeseen expenses, and challenges. Despite the increase in budget, when I look at the terrarium now, I can see that most of the issues and things that I don't like about it are due to the overall financial limitations. Some examples of things I would have done with more money are: 1. Started with a high-quality rimless tank. 2. Used a tank which was vertical already instead of doing a horizontal to vertical conversion. 3. Got a custom lighting setup with a spotlight LED and outer LED array. And 4. Add a filtration system to keep the water quality in check. Some lessons learned from the budget issues are: if you have a limited budget, don't get too ambitious and fancy with the design. Also, don't incorporate any features or design elements that you've never implemented before, because you're more likely to run into additional expenses. And lastly, if you have a limited budget, I would advise not to do a water feature, because it adds too much cost and necessities such as a pump, plumbing, fittings, sump, water filter, and so forth. By the way, as of the date of this video, I am still in possession of this drip wall tank. My friend and his wife had a baby, and so he doesn't have time to deal with this tank, so I've got it still and I'm maintaining it. Here are some of the issues that I've experienced with this tank. Humidity management. The first issue was that the open front design was lowering the humidity too much. The bucephalandra weren't doing very well, even after some time for adaptation. So I had to use a plastic bag over most of the front to contain some humidity. Sometime in the future, I'd like to create some kind of plastic or glass front panel and come up with a way to hold it on so that I can contain the humidity, but still see through. Some lessons learned from the humidity issue are: 1. When making an open front tank, use plants that are more tolerant of lower humidity. I thought I could force the bucephalandra given enough time to adapt, but I think it was a bit of a stretch to do an open front tank with a bucephalandra. 2. I learned that I don't particularly like open front designs. I kind of had a feeling about this in the beginning, but I decided to do it anyway, and I probably won't ever be doing one again. Aside from the practical aspects, such as maintaining humidity, the other thing I don't like is that there's a visual divide where the bottom container ends and the open front begins. The next issue is mold. Since the tank is wet, humid, and there's a lot of biological matter, obviously there's going to be mold. It's a natural part of the decomposition process, but sometimes it can get out of hand. Luckily, it's not a very aggressive type in the tank right now, and so it's not really causing a huge problem, but it is unattractive. Another issue has been algae, slime, and excess nutrient buildup. Since I don't have adequate filtration and I haven't really had time to do a lot of water changes, there's a lot of unsightly biological matter building up on the wood and down in the water section and all around. Another challenge that I've had is light imbalances. Since the tank is tall, narrow, and has a strongly overhanging hardscape, it's really bright near the top and then it's really dim near the bottom. The Bucephalandra actually prefer the dim light at the bottom, and it's been the plants at the top that have struggled the most because it's brighter up there but also lower humidity. Another issue has been evaporation. Since the front of the tank is open and there's a lot of moving water, it leads to fast evaporation, and so I have to top the water up in the sump quite a bit. One more issue that's really unfortunate has been Riccia overgrowth. So the Riccia is the liverwort that I planted all along the wall and the back and the sides. Unfortunately, it has grown really large and bushy, so what it's doing is it's extending outward from the wall, and so it's actually kind of making the space inside the tank smaller as it continues to grow outward. So it's really bushy and taking up a lot of space. Aside from the fact that the environment in the tank was a perfect fit for what Riccia prefers, I used it specifically because it is a very fast-growing plant, and I wanted rapid coverage of the background of the tank. However, now I wish I'd used a more compact moss or liverwort for the main wall covering instead of Riccia. Next time I'd probably use Riccardia, which is a much smaller and more compact liverwort, or maybe I'd use some kind of moss like Physidens. Most moss and liverworts are going to be slower growing than Riccia, but the more compact covering and reduced maintenance are going to be worth the wait. A lesson learned from this experience is to not use a particular plant just because it grows fast and you want quick coverage. It's better to choose a more appropriate plant and then give it time to grow in. Someone asked me what my thoughts were about having a glass front versus an open front tank. The pros for a glass front tank are, 1, it contains the humidity, so plants like Bucephalandra will grow better. 2, there will be less evaporation, so you won't need to top off the water as much. And 3, it would look better since there would not be the visual divide where currently there is due to the lower plate of glass which contains the water section. The only negative I can think of with having glass along the front in a vertical tank is that it's extremely difficult to work on the construction, hardscape, and so on. I don't think I could have accomplished the same design if I had to work from the top through a narrow opening, even if I had the tank on its side during the build. Here are some next steps and things I'd like to do in the future with this build. I think I'm going to clean off the top of the wood in the center of the tank because it's currently covered in liverworts and slime and all kinds of scum. I'll probably pull away all the plant matter and then I'll keep it that way permanently instead of letting stuff grow over it because I want the wood to be visible. The wood has a lot of character and it's really beautiful, and additionally the plants are covering up the water flow, so if I pull all of that stuff off and I keep the wood clean all the time, then you'll be able to see the water trickling down over the wood, and I think it's going to look really nice. I think I'm going to remove most of the Riccia from the walls because, as mentioned, it has grown too bushy and it's not looking very good. It might be possible to cut it back, but I have a feeling that that would look really bad. Not to mention it's eventually just going to grow back out into a big bush anyway. I think I'm going to switch to a more compact liverwort or a moss or something like that. Despite all the challenges and a few of the things that I don't love about this drip wall tank, I'm still really happy with the way it came out. It's very relaxing to watch it and to listen to the trickling water. This was the first drip wall tank I've ever made, and I learned a lot of stuff about water systems, plumbing, planning designs, and so forth. I have some even more epic design ideas for future builds, and I know all of the experience that I got on this build is going to be invaluable. If you decide that you're up for the challenge of making your own drip wall tank, or if you're just curious how it's done, check out my video series with behind the scenes photos and commentary about how I built this terrarium. It's linked in the description and as an info card.